Hey everybody, in this lesson we're going to talk about unit conversions. The big idea here is that unit conversions allow us to relate various units together. So let's look at this first example. If you're driving from Vancouver to Toronto at 100 kilometers an hour, it took you 50 hours to travel. How far is it from Vancouver to Toronto? Well, you might know this as you just multiply these two together, because I know that if I find, for example, I know that time is equal to velocity times, or not time, distance is equal to velocity times time. And thus, if I multiply 100 kilometers per hour and I multiply that by 50 hours, I could see that this would be 5,000 kilometers. And you might remember this from Science 8, Science 9, Science 10. But why does this work? Why does this formula work? Well, let's take a look at this next example. Say you want to buy, let's say right now, you want to buy 5 carrots. And when you go to the store, you might see that 5 carrots is equal to $1.50. Well, this is a ratio. 5 carrots equal to $1.50, or if you have $1.50, you could buy 5 carrots. Because these two are equal, these are equivalent. And whenever you have two things that are equivalent, we can actually turn them into fractions. So likewise, it can turn either into 5 carrots over $1.50, or I could turn it into $1.50 over 5 carrots. I could take the reciprocal of it. Now these fractions that we have here, because they are equal, the moment something is equal, you turn them fractions. We call these conversion factors. And what can a conversion factor do? Well, what a conversion factor can allow us to do is, in this case, it can convert carrots and dollars. So let's say instead of $1.50, I have $3. I could buy how many carrots? Or let's say I want to buy 20 carrots. How much would it cost me? So using this conversion factor, I could find that. So where else do we see conversion factors? Well, we see conversion factors in everywhere. As long as there's things that are equal to each other, they can work. For example, let's look at time. We know that 60 seconds is equal to 1 minute. We know that 60 minutes equal to 1 hour. We know 24 hours is 1 day, 7 days in 1 week, 52 weeks in a year, and 365 days approximately per a year. Each one of these are equal, and because they're equal, we could put them in a fraction. For example, if we look at the first one right here, we could write this as 60 seconds over 1 minute. Or I could write it as 1 minute over 60 seconds, because they're equal. And again, this is a conversion factor. It will allow us to convert between minutes and seconds. Why does this work? Well, it deals with your idea of polynomials, algebra, and simplifying them. So look at this example right here. If 20x over 10y, and you're going to multiply that by 15y, what is going to happen? Well, some of you might go, okay, when you multiply fractions, you multiply across and you divide by the bottom. But what if I could just tell you that you could simplify this? Yes, you can see that the 20 and 10, this is just a 2 and a 1. What else cancels? Well, the y's also cancel. If you have the same variable in the numerator and the same variable in the denominator, they will cancel out. So what you're left with is 2 times 15x, which is 30x. If you don't understand how this works, let's take a look. What we have here is 2 over 1x times by 15. That's why it's 30x. It's 30 over 1x, but it's 30x. So how and what is really happening here? Well, whenever you're using these conversion factors to help you convert units, they're fractions. So you need to know how to use fractions to convert units. So what we want to do is we want to use fraction multiplication. Now, what is fraction multiplication? Well, if I were to look at, for example, 3 over 2 times 5 over 6, what is happening? Well, I'm actually multiplying 3 times 5 over 2 times 6, which gives me 15 over 12, which if I wanted to reduce is 5 over 4. Now, that is fraction multiplication, which means that you multiply across. You're going to use two of these things, simplifying fraction and multiplying fractions, to help you convert. But why am I saying simplifying fractions here? Well, these y's that we just canceled from the previous question, what if they were units? Like, what if that was 15 hours and that was 10 hours? The hours will cancel each other out. So I use the fact that these units are variables which can be canceled out to help us convert. Now, what are the steps of solving unit conversion then? What we want to do is, we always want to start off with, number one, what value are we converting? Find that value you want to convert. Number two, create conversion factors. Find things that are equal to each other and turn them into fractions. Okay, number three, take starting value and multiply by conversion factor in which the unit you do not want cancels out. And last but not least, step 4, repeat step 2 and 3 until you finish converting. So let's practice that. Let's practice what that looks like. Okay. Well, in the first example, what we're going to see is, if 5a is equal to 9b, how many a's are in 81b? Well, right here, which I'm going to highlight in yellow, this is your conversion factor. And this conversion factor can be put into a fraction. It can either be 5a over 9b, or it could be 9b over 5a. So that means this one I'm highlighting green, that's my starting value. My starting value is always something that I'm trying to convert from. Well, what is my final unit I want to convert to? I want to find how many a's there are. So I want to convert 81b into a's. So what do I have? Well, I have 81b. I start with that. And I multiply that by this fraction. One of these fractions in which the b's will cancel out. Do I use fraction number 1 or fraction number 2? Well, if I use fraction number 1, what happens? 5a over 9b. Well, what happens to the b is the b's will cancel out because you have 1 in the top and 1 in the bottom. 1 in the numerator, 1 in the denominator. They will always cancel out. So what I'm left with is 81 times 5a, the a is still there, over 9. And if I plug that into my calculator, 81 times 5 divided by 9, I'm going to get 45 a's. And that's my answer, because I want to find how many a's that is if I had 81b. What happens if I didn't use the first conversion factor? What happens if I use the second conversion factor? Well, let's see. If I took 81b and I multiply by 9b over 5a, what you're going to notice is, first of all, the b's don't cancel out. So what you have is 81 times 9 is 729. B times b, you know that's b squared, over 5a. Does that look like an answer of how many a's you're trying to solve? The answer is no. So that's why this one doesn't work. Okay, let's try the next example. If 0.400 milliliters of silver has a mass of 4.20 grams, what is the mass of 10 milliliters of silver? So right here, we want to find our conversion factors. Two things are equal to each other. Which one is it? Well, if 0.4 milliliters of silver has a mass of 4.20 grams, these two are equal to each other. That is a conversion factor. So either you have 0.400 milliliters over 4.20 grams, or you have 4.20 grams over 0.400 milliliters. Well, I want to convert my 10 milliliters into mass. So I take 10.00 milliliters and multiply by one of these conversion factors. Which one will get me a mass and cancel out my volume? The first conversion factor or the second one? What I can see here is the second one will put milliliters on the bottom. And here's what you got to remember. If you have one unit on top and the same unit on the bottom, they will always cancel out. So milliliters, one on top, one on the bottom, they will cancel out. And thus I'm left with just grams. So how do I solve this? When you do fraction multiplication, you multiply across the top and divide by what's on the bottom. So what I'm left with here is I'm going to have 10 times 4.2 divided by 0.4. I'm going to get 105. So 105 grams. That's how much the silver would weigh or has a mass of if you had 10 milliliters of it. What if I want to find how many days are a million seconds? Okay. This one requires you to have a few other conversions in mind. Because you know how many seconds there are in a minute, you know how many minutes there are in an hour, and you know how many hours are in a day, but you probably don't have how many seconds there are per day. So you could do multiple conversions, in this case, to cancel out. So let's start writing. 1 million is this number. It has 6 zeros after the 1. My first conversion is to convert my seconds to, let's say, minutes, because I know that conversion. I know that 60 seconds is 1 minute. So where should that 1 minute go? Where should that 60 second go? If you already have a second on the numerator, that other second should go in the denominator. That means minute should go here. And what is the equivalent fraction in this case? 1 minute is 60 seconds, and thus your seconds cancels. Okay. My next conversion. I'm now in minutes because my seconds got canceled. My next step, convert to hours. Where should hours go? Where should minutes go? Well, if I already have a minute in the numerator, I need to put a minute in the denominator. So minute goes here, hours go here. 1 hour is 60 minutes. My last conversion is to convert it to days, in which I know that now hours should be on the bottom so it can cancel out. Because here we go, minutes cancel out, hours will cancel out, and thus day should be on top. 1 day is 24 hours. So once I have in day, I'm done. I just got to punch it on my calculator now. So 1 million. Let's plug that into our calculator. How do I multiply this? Well, I multiply across. A million times 1 is still a million. Times 1, still a million. Times 1, still a million. But now I want to divide by the bottom. So divide this by 60, which is how many minutes? It's 16,666 minutes per day. Divided by 60 again. That's how many hours there are in a million seconds. And lastly, divide by 24. And I get 11.574 days. 11.574 days. So every 11 and a half days, you lived a million seconds. Then what would be a billion seconds? Well, billion means multiplying this number by 1,000, which means I multiply that number by 1,000. If I multiply this number by 1,000, that's how many days it is in a billion seconds. Divide that by 365, and I find that it's approximately 31 and a half years. So if you are 31.7 years old, you would have lived a billion seconds. So most of you are around half a billion seconds old. So to finish off today, Can we also change the units of the denominator too? And the answer is yes, as long as we remember if we have one of the same unit on the top and the same unit on the bottom, it could cancel out. So if you follow canceling the same unit in numerator and denominator, so let's take a look at this question here. Gasoline is currently around $1.31 per liter. What is the price in gallons? So I want to find what the dollar per gallons is. So this is my starting amount. So that means I want to convert liters into gallons. What's the conversion there? Well, if you know by heart, 1 US gallon is equal to 3.78 liters, approximately. It's 3.785 liters if you want to be more exact. So we have our conversion factor. We just now need to convert it. So I write out 131 per liter. And I want to multiply this by my conversion factor. Where should gallons go? Well, if I have my liters on the bottom, I want to convert liters to gallons. I should put this 3.385 liters on top. Because by doing that, my liters will cancel out. Boom. And thus I can now solve for my dollars per gallon. And when I do that, 1.31 times 3.785, I'm going to get $4.96 per a gallon. So that's what the price of gas would be if it was per gallon. So this is the end of this lesson. As always, make sure you stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you soon.